Good morning, Elissa Kalver.
Good morning, Kat Bradshaw.
It's been so long. I'm so happy that you're here. I saw a post that you put on Instagram yesterday, and it really made me like, oh my God, I need her here. She needs to talk about cancer. She needs to talk about food. She needs to talk about fitness, mental health, all of the things that have to do with health and fitness. Are you up for it?
Oh, yeah. And I was so excited when you commented because my thought was like, I need to talk more about this. And who would I want to talk about this with? Kat. So this is the perfect opportunity. Sounds like a win-win. Let's do this.
Yeah, just in case some folks don't know who you are yet, can you talk a little bit about yourself? I know that the people who do know us, they know that we met at Tap Out several years
Yes.
ago. I walked into your Tap Out Fitness gym, um, actually going to a Zumba class because I needed something really fun to break up my, you know, CrossFit, and I met you and I immediately liked you, and you were up to really cool things, and you've been up to even more amazing things since then.
Thanks. And likewise. And my normal intro is of course, a lot of the things I've been talking about over the past few years is that I was diagnosed with stage 4 metastatic breast cancer 3 years ago. And it was just a few days before my daughter's first birthday, which Ellie.
Yes.
And everyone was asking how they could help and what they could do. And I appreciate it so much. But when I was pregnant or getting married, having a gift registry is really normalized and asking for help is very normal. But then when you're diagnosed with cancer or going through the hard times, it's very uncomfortable to ask for help. You don't want to. People don't know what to get you. You don't know what you need. And so because I didn't want to ask for help and I just sent messages saying, thank you so much for reaching out, just you caring is enough. Everyone still wanted to help and they all sent blankets. So I got like 50 blankets and I was like, I feel like there has to be a better way. So that's when I started my nonprofit, wegotthis.org, which is the first nonprofit gift registry for cancer patients. And it has been such an amazing silver lining in obviously the hardest time of my life. But what's been so amazing about it is just like the gym. So I owned a Tap Out Fitness studio, which was mainly cardio boxing, but we did one-off Zumba classes. And I'm so glad we did because that's how you came in. And it's really the community, like, that makes it what it is. And so in addition to the registry, we are building out even more a very robust resource directory of other nonprofits and free resources, and then also a lot of our recommendations and partnerships in our shop. So it'll make the question of what you need or what to get a whole lot easier. And we have over 2,500 users of the registry since launching and some great exposure. But what I love about our discussion today that I really haven't gotten to do in this, format is I say all the time, there's nothing is black and white when it comes to health and fitness, in my opinion. And before being diagnosed with cancer, I was very active. I played collegiate field hockey. I had run marathons, triathlons, century rides. I owned a gym, so there's a lot of things incorporated in my life that would be more active than the average person. And I still, at the age of 34, was diagnosed right off the bat with stage 4 breast cancer. I have no genetic mutation or family history, and it's so natural for people to want to figure out why. And I try to do the best I can in my everyday life to accomplish a lot of different things that, I'm sure we'll go more into. But I don't waste my time dwelling on what I could have done wrong or what I could have done differently, because I don't think anyone has that exact answer. I think we have things to pull from on knowledge. And the video that you responded to was me kind of joking around of like trying to eat things and then my inner self saying like, no, don't eat that, don't eat that. And it went from like, you're a vegan now to you're carnivore and like, don't drink water out of Stanley cups. And these are like real things that like messages that I have gotten. I mean, like this is real and it's confusing. And I was in the health and fitness industry and I'm freaking confused. So I'm excited to talk through it.
What kind of people, what background do these people have that were giving you these different messages?
Oh, it's such a great question because the messages, and it came mainly after I first posted that I had breast cancer. And the messages were mainly from people not dietitians, not nutritionists, things like that, from people who maybe just had opinions or people who, maybe that worked for them. Like, because genuinely, someone messaged me about going vegan, who is a vegan and like feel great and all of that. And then someone else genuinely messaged me about being a carnivore and how that helped with her autoimmune disease. And these things are totally valid. It's just, if I listened to everyone's advice, I would starve to death. Because then it literally, it can't, sorry, I hit my mic, it cancels out all foods. So it's like, I even spent weeks researching alkaline water because of so many messages about it. Like I got so many messages that I was like, I'm going to take this seriously. I listened to podcasts about it. And what's funny is when I reached out to the people that I trusted, like my oncologist, and like medical, but then, alternative stuff too. So like I have done acupuncture a lot throughout my life. And currently I reached out to multiple dietitians, people I trust in the industry. I know we talked initially too and ongoing of like movement and all these things.
Yeah.
All of them were so different from the unsolicited advice. Like, in so many ways that brought me comfort, but then there's still so much confusion because you're constantly questioning yourself when people keep messaging or saying, you got to starve the cancer, you got to do this or that.
That's a tough place to be because you know that people are coming from a good place. They have nothing but good intentions and you can clearly see that, but you're the one who's dealing with it. It's your body. And, there's a lot of similarities between the person who just doesn't have cancer and them being inundated with all sorts of different options and people saying, well, you've got to do carnivore, you've got to go vegan, you've got to do vegetarian, you've got to do paleo, you've got to do keto, you've got to do this, you've got to do that because it worked for me. And it's like, okay, great. I appreciate that. And I'm happy for you that it worked for you. And I'll consider it and I'll try it out if I want. But at the end of the day, you, Elissa, you are unique. Your body is unique. Your physiology is unique. Your lifestyle is unique. Your background is unique. And so I feel like whether you had cancer or not, you are going to have to take the time to try what works best for you. And the interesting part of it is, as you grow older and as your body changes, your dietary needs will most likely also change.
Yes.
Right?
And that's been one of the biggest things that I think even people with cancer who might say, good intentioned ideas is we're so different. Like, we're a thumbprint. I don't know anyone else with my exact scenario. I have, a couple that we have very similar, trajectory of diagnosis and treatments and all that. But like, most of us are very different. And there's also a difference between each type of treatment. Like, I'm on my 5th line of treatment right now. And the symptoms and side effects that you get are totally different. Where if I felt like vegan was 100% the right diet for me, that's what I want to do, I can't control like what my body can stomach, like all these other things. And that has drastically changed. Like the first month of having cancer, I was worried that everything was trying to murder me. Like I went through my house, I was trying to eliminate plastics, which there's definitely like easy things we can do to like, minimize as much as possible, but like to eliminate plastics is impossible.
Yeah.
Like it's so hard, right? There's more than we even know that have plastics in it. But then with the diet, I went vegan for like the first month or so of starting chemo. And it was tough because I couldn't eat enough because like, it's not just a loss of taste from chemo. This was my original one gave me the most loss of taste. And it was like a whole week where I couldn't taste food, but like my mouth hurt. So like eating like, gritty things or like for days, the only thing I could eat like that didn't hurt or feel uncomfortable in my mouth was like carnitas tacos.
my God, that's so specific.
So specific. I was like, I tried different stuff and everyone was so sweet, like sending DoorDash gift cards and things like that. And so I would just like get different carnitas tacos. And then even with that, like normally, because, traditionally I do prefer more paleo or like I'm not celiac, but gluten definitely just like, I have a non-celiac sensitivity. And so I just like, I would pick corn tortillas usually over flour, but like the corn tortillas would hurt my mouth more because they're like, have more texture. So like sometimes you also need to stay alive and like stay feeling good. And I think that we set such strict expectations for ourselves, which in turn causes so much guilt. Like there's so much guilt that cancer patients put on themselves because of people's unsolicited advice.
Oh,
and
wow.
I don't think that people realize that, but by questioning my diet or questioning what I'm doing, whether it be that someone thinks you shouldn't do chemo because you should be more natural or this or that, you're saying that what I'm doing isn't enough or what I'm doing is wrong. And that's like the biggest insult someone could give me. Like, I know myself and my body better than anyone else, but also none of us know it 100%. Like, my oncologist doesn't have all the answers. I don't have all the answers. Nobody does. So, like, we have to do our best and we have to be confident and feel good that our best is enough because we shouldn't have to live with that feeling in addition to living with cancer and just living life in general.
I totally agree with you. And it's kind of mind blowing because I'm not in your circumstance. So I've never felt that before. And again, I want to believe that people have the best intentions when they're giving that unsolicited advice. But, they also need to get checked, in my opinion, because maybe nobody has ever told them before, like, hey, that's actually not helpful. And so I do really appreciate seeing on your Instagram, like, this doesn't help, but instead try this wording, because I'm also guilty of that. When you first got diagnosed, I didn't know what to do. I was in the same boat as pretty much the majority of people. And I was like, please let me know what I can do. And it's like, you don't know what to ask for at this point. You're not like a professional cancer patient who knows the answer here. You're figuring it out. That's not even like a thing, being a professional cancer patient, but you know what I mean?
I feel like at this point I've like earned that title maybe.
Now you are. Now I feel like, and I think you're empowering a lot of folks, to understand this better and to navigate it with more grace and to be more helpful and to ultimately be more educated in this area. So I have a few questions. Number one, with people like that who give this unsolicited advice that is absolutely not helpful, and in fact, it kind of like invokes some feelings of shame or guilt, what do you find the most helpful in dealing with a person like that? Do we just do we just ignore it? Do we not respond? Do you have a response and you educate them? What have you found to be the most helpful?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think it's really specific to the person, because like, just like with what you're saying, I still sometimes will catch myself texting, like, let me know if you need anything. And I specifically tell people not to do that, but it is our instinct. Like you can tell, I think most of the time, and based on the person, like, do they genuinely want to help or not, and why are they asking? So if someone's asking me about my diet, or things. And it, like, depending on who it is, like, they might genuinely want to know, because of them or a family member or like seeing, for other things. But if that person's trying to like sell me on a program or pitch me on something that they feel really strongly about, that's when it feels very predatory. And that's when I think it crosses a line that's inappropriate. Not that people can't ever sell things, and these people usually genuinely do feel like what they're doing is, will help and save people. I think it's just kind of understanding like your audience and knowing who to go after. My whole career I worked in outside sales, and I wouldn't force things upon people, it's more of business to business stuff. But even like owning the gym, right? If someone comes in and they try boxing and they're like, I really prefer my Pilates class, I'm gonna be like, that's wrong, boxing is the better workout, right? Like what's best for you is best for you. And like the best workout is the one that you enjoy doing and that's effective. There's so many different ways to get in shape, right? There's
Yes.
also so many different ways to eat healthy.
Yes.
And the biggest example that stuck out to me, this still messes with my brain. So remember when soy was like all the rage, you do soy milk because it was healthier, all this stuff. Then it was like soy's terrible for you. It affects estrogen levels and all this stuff. When I was diagnosed with cancer, and this isn't like one dietitian, this is like at least 5 dietitians on the more holistic side, more medical side, oncology dietitians, totally like alternative medicine ones. Soy is a preventative for breast cancer, from what I've been told.
Oh,
And
interesting.
the estrogen levels that got the bad rap was a specific type of estrogen only in rats. Now, don't quote me on this, but I've read like a lot of articles and I've had a lot of people tell me this, that it is good for you. But a lot of people can be allergic to soy.
Yes.
Or soy can be an inflammatory.
Yes.
So that's like a great example to me of something that, one, the reputation it had took 180s, all over the place. And then also now it still kind of messes with my head and I still feel weird about, like, I don't really drink soy milk. But I even had a dietitian tell me like I should have 3 servings of soy a day. But depending on whatever you believe in, it shows that something that could be good and preventative might not be good or preventative for everyone.
Exactly.
And that's what I think we have to recognize is like, if someone's telling you that their solution is the only one, then I don't think they have your best interest in mind. I think the right person will tell you that there's multiple ways to do something and here's the way they prefer and how they can help.
I 100% agree with you. And I think soy is such a great example. And you can do that with many, many foods. You can do it with eggs, avocados. You can do it with meat. You can do it with pretty much any kind of vegetable. And it's true. I think that you have to take the time and you have to care enough to really try out certain foods, stick with it for long enough to see if your body has a positive or negative reaction, and then go from there and be willing to adjust, because how you were when you were first diagnosed to how you are today is different. And so your body may change, your palate may change, your stomach might change. And so I'm wondering, are you still eating carnitas, number 1? And number 2, are there any foods that you gravitate towards more currently and that are working well for you?
Yeah, great question on the carnitas. So it's funny because I've always liked carnitas, and a lot of times, and people warn me of this, things that you eat during chemo that like makes you more nauseous or sick, which was my like initial chemo, is much harsher than kind of what I live with, because I'll be in chemo for the rest of my life unless we find a cure for metastatic breast cancer, which I just want to say, I think it's really important to clarify that I don't think that's a negative thing, because people will be like, don't say that, like you're going to beat it and all this stuff. And and I talk about this a lot in my book and in my speaking. I talk a lot about redefining success and redefining what it means to beat cancer. And if our definition of beating cancer is curing it or being in remission or not, then I'm going to be pounding sand potentially every day until I die, even if I die at 100, right?
Yeah.
And so that's not fair. And I think that when explaining the different types of treatments and how it goes, like, it's not if, it's when I'm going to have recurrences. And I can't, every time I have a recurrence, think that I did something wrong. Like, I just recently had a recurrence. I switched chemo. I'm on the 2nd round of a new chemo treatment called Kadcyla. And I was on the last treatment for over 2 years, which one of my friends said is longer than most LA marriages. But but that's like a success. Like, I was on treatment for a long time. That's a big deal. Like, people were dying, 12 to 18 months from metastatic breast cancer not that long ago. Like, these things have advanced a lot. And I think people think that they haven't just because we haven't cured all types of breast cancer or cancer in general.
Right.
But during that initial chemo that was harsher, there's some foods I ate then that I've always liked and I would eat now that I'm repulsed by.
Oh, interesting.
Because
Like
I
what?
had them. I'm not repulsed by carnitas, but I don't pick them as much.
Okay.
Just like my taste for it has changed a little bit. Even my taste for red meat, like, that I think depending on the person, you can argue or not on whether red meat's good or bad. But regardless of health or not, it's just like I don't love it as much. Like I used to love like a good steak or something.
Yeah.
And overnight oats was the big one, which I'm pretty bummed about because like I love a good meal prep overnight oats for the week. And that's what I did pretty much every day. And I was really organic about it, like Erewhon ingredient overnight oats,
Oh, yeah.
But now like having and I would make it with almond milk because that's what I preferred. And like, yeah, it's hard for me to have cold oats. Like I still like oatmeal, but I need it hot now because the cold overnight oats like reminds me of my original chemo.
Oh my gosh, that's so interesting. There's like there's a memory tie to these foods.
Exactly. And your taste does change. Like just started this chemo. So I just had my second round last Wednesday. So I'm like, 4 weeks in to this type of treatment. And I really like the little Baby Bell cheeses.
Mm-hmm.
I have one like every morning with Ellie because she loves them. And I had one after I started this chemo and I was like, do I not like this anymore? It tasted totally different. It was so things can ebb and flow. Other things that I do really like and like I believe are healthy for me are things like Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, like those types of dairy don't bother me. Let's see, what other favorite foods? What would you say is like what would you consider universally like healthy or like good stuff?
Chicken,
Yes.
eggs, ground turkey, nuts and seeds if you're not allergic, blueberries, raspberries, banana.
I love fruit. So like I've always liked fruit, but cold fruit or like acai bowls when I'm feeling not well from treatment, my tongue's feeling like sandpaper, stuff like that, which isn't like all the time. It's, a day or two of like those types of extremes. Fruit or like an acai bowl feels really comforting. And that's why like keto wouldn't be the right choice for me because I also enjoy roasted vegetables and things like that. And so I want to be able to have like as much veggies that I want. And I want to have fruit more than like half an apple in a day.
It sounds like you need a variety of foods like a normal, healthy, well-rounded human being. But then you have to make adjustments too, because some days you can't ever like truly stick to a strict diet plan because you need flexibility, maybe more so than the average person because of the extra things that you're going through. Mm-hmm. But I think in general, people need to have more flexibility, at least in their mind, when it comes to nutrition and stop being so strict, unless they're one of these people who are like, for example, diehard carnivores. I know some, and it's the only thing they can literally stomach, and it works really well for them. But most humans are able to take in a variety of different, foods, and it works well for them. Do you find, I'm going to ask a real question, do you find that you are eating foods at all that you shouldn't be eating and you would be fine if you just did not eat them?
Like I would be fine in the sense that like if I didn't eat them, I wouldn't have
like you would be, you wouldn't, like mentally and physically, you would be just fine. Like you don't need to eat this, I want to say like a cheat meal or something that's processed or something that is not good for you.
Yeah, probably the biggest one I'm guilty of is ice cream. Because like I said, cold stuff feels good. I'm more likely to eat things that like that are a cheat or like not as good in a dessert way than I am for my meals. So like I'd much rather have ice cream than go have like a greasy cheeseburger or something else. Not that I don't like cheeseburgers, but it's like that doesn't do it for me,
Yeah, it's the sweet. And in particular right now, at least it's the cold sweet, like an ice cream.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you feel like the way that you're doing it now, the amount of ice cream you're having, like it's totally fine and it is, it's worth it?
Yeah, currently, I'm really not overdoing anything right now, especially since the new treatment, because it has been a little tough. I've been a little bit more nauseous, more fatigued. So, if anything, I'm just like making sure that I'm eating enough throughout the day.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so it changes, right? And then on the last stream I was on, I felt really good the past couple of years. Like it was very manageable, and actually the side effect that was most frustrating was weight gain. And it's a very common side effect on Xeloda, which was one of the chemo meds I was previously on. And that was really frustrating because I wasn't particularly in like a calorie surplus, that was extreme or anything. It was just like very hard to manage my weight. And it didn't get like crazy unhealthy. It's like kind of when you're feeling like, ugh, I'm already feeling too heavy. I'm just going to eat whatever I want, and that's when, again, I'd say the sweets is what I'm most guilty of. But like, even if, like, I don't know, cheat meal or not, like, I'd much rather have like, tender green salmon and roasted veggies than like Chick-fil-A. Like that
I
doesn't
hear
even appeal
you.
to me anymore. Yeah.
I hear you. Are you cooking your meals mostly or ordering healthy meals in or eating out? What does it look like right now?
So I started using Cook Unity. Have you used them?
I haven't used them yet.
I really like it because, I'd used Territory for years, if you remember, like since
Of
the gym
course.
we had that. And they're great. And I really like their meals. It's just when you eat the same, like, prepared foods, even though they have a variety, like it was years. It's just like you can't eat it anymore.
Yes.
And so my oncology dietitian recommended Cook Unity. And I like it because I've tried to give myself a little bit more grace and not feeling like I have to order only the like strictest, healthiest meals. I try to order some that also are like kind of a treat. Like they have like a non pizza, it's like really delicious, things like that. And so that wouldn't have been something I would have ordered in the past, like before cancer, because I was mostly paleo and all that kind of stuff. But that makes it so that I'm less likely to go out or order in all the time. So I feel like I'm valuing balance a lot more. I won't say that I'm balanced in everything because I'm very obsessed with my nonprofit, and
We're going to
Eric and
talk
Amber
about
and
that.
Sarah, who work with me, would definitely laugh at me if I said I'm balanced because I do a lot. But in that respect, yeah. So mainly that. I would love to get more into cooking again, but it's just like between managing cancer, the nonprofit, and being a mom, it's tough. So. But yeah, that, and then if I order out, I'm a big like tender greens, poke bowl, all that kind of stuff.
Pretty healthy. I don't want to forget about that. And I definitely want to talk to you about that because you're up to so many things. I don't know if you're busier. I think you're busier now than ever before. Am I wrong?
I think you're right, but it's different because when you own a gym, having a brick and mortar business is, even if you're not there working, it's like a stressor on your mind all the time. Like I would never, just for me, I would not have a brick and mortar business again. Like it was the most rewarding thing, in the end. And I have so many lifelong friends like you because of it. It's amazing. But having more, what we have is a internet presence. It's a national and, in a way global too, platform is different because even if I'm not feeling well or other things, like I can take meetings from bed. So it's not stressful. It's really fun, which is why I'm so busy with it. Cause I just like enjoy it so much. Whereas like the gym, I couldn't like take long breaks cause like it was stressful. Like
Yeah.
you'd
Yeah,
miss
I
rest.
remember.
Yeah.
I totally remember that. And the reason why I was asking you that is because I feel like you are up to so many things in addition to not only creating your own nonprofit and me watching it grow and seeing you. Was it Good Morning America? Like
Yes.
that's a
Yeah.
huge deal to get that kind of, presence and like I feel. And then you wrote your own book. You're an author now, and you're doing so much public speaking. You're always holding all of these events. And so that's why I was asking, are you more busy now than you were when you owned the gym? But I feel like since I've known you, I've always known you to be such a go-getter and to always number one, you're the biggest networker that I know. You have the most connections of everyone I've ever known. And I feel like you're such a people person. You like people. You really, really like people, and you enjoy connecting with people. And I I could see that as being a very positive thing in your life. But with everything that you're up to, as fulfilling as it is, as rewarding as it is, does it ever feel like it's too much? And it's like maybe too much for your body, for your mind, for anything?
The biggest thing when I feel like maybe I'm giving too much of myself, like maybe I'm overstretching it, is financially, because I haven't paid myself at all through the nonprofit since I started it, and I really am prioritizing growing it. And I hope that this year I can, And sometimes when you see some other nonprofits or all these things in these huge grants and donations, and we've raised $1 million, over $1 million since I started this a few years ago, and that's through no major gifting.
That's incredible and so inspiring, by the way.
Thank you. And I'm so proud of it. But then I also am sometimes more recently, I also have cancer. I don't want anyone to do anything for me, but help me help everyone with cancer by making this easier, because ultimately that burden does fall on me. So, but then, I'm the type that once I feel that way, then I go do a million things about it. And then a lot of them come together and it gets resolved. And so it hasn't hit the point of that. There's never been a point where I'm like, why am I doing this? Or, I should have just, not done this and played golf and tennis. I really do. I love it so much. And I feel so mission driven, which I'm not sure I've ever felt mission driven in my life. The gym was definitely the closest thing to building the community. And I think a big reason, I do genuinely love talking with people, networking, connecting people. I do everything leading with just good intentions. I don't connect people hoping for something in return, but I do believe that just going out there and doing right things for other people circles back. And that's how I've always been, whether it was when I was a financial advisor or in sales or at the gym. But the gym, for instance, we always had all 5-star reviews on Yelp. And it was one of my biggest fears was because people could just be trolls, or competitors can write bad reviews. And I feel, I'm proud of the fact that I think I made it that no one could say anything bad about me. It was I genuinely just wanted to have this awesome place for people to build a community. And that's how I feel with the nonprofit is it's so fulfilling seeing these people who I've never met, who know my story and know the nonprofit and are using the registry, and that's helping them is so amazing. And it's just more of an impact than I ever thought I would make. And it really restructured what my goal in life is. It really is to make the biggest impact in my lifetime that I possibly can.
I'm thinking the whole time while you share your story, you know how chemo and everything else makes you tired, it makes you fatigued, it makes you nauseous at times. Do you have the ability to just say I need a day or I need a week? Do you have that when you're up to big things like this?
That ebbs and flows, because it's depending on are we planning an event or other stuff. And it's not that I don't trust other people or all that. I just enjoy it so much. So whether it's, that I'm working in bed or something else, there are times where I just don't stop. But lately, this new treatment, like I said, it's definitely been a little tough at first. And so I am really mapping out okay, I know that for X amount of days after my infusion, I'm going to be stuck in bed. And I try to set very realistic expectations with myself, because if I don't, that's when it's I feel oh my God, am I going to spend my whole life in bed?
Yeah.
I have to be in bed again. But if I'm hey, for 4 days after treatment, I'm going to be very fatigued. Let me pick out some shows. Let me a lot of it I sleep. I don't even really watch TV anymore, to be honest. But if I set those expectations with myself, then I still feel I'm succeeding. So I think that setting that up is something I've learned.
I love that. Let's pivot towards fitness if you're open to it. And tell me how fitness is fitting into your life currently.
Man, it's been tough currently, because I really still enjoy boxing a lot. That's my workout of choice. And I also think it's like a very safe workout because, you know, I don't fight people. It's just like boxing classes, but I like it because it's like resistance and like all mixed in one. And like, it's just, even if I'm feeling fatigued, I'm like not super likely to get injured since I know technique and all that kind of stuff. But as I have been more fatigued, I've been getting a lot more back pain as a symptom. Like not all the time. It's just during certain parts after my infusions. And I find it really hard to get in the workout, to even go on like more walks. And so I'm constantly trying to kind of reposition what works for me. I recently started doing yin yoga more, like, which I don't love yoga. It's just never been, like, I like the way it feels. I think it's great, like great for you and all of that. I just don't enjoy it. Like, I'm not very good. Like, I'm not good at, you know, I know everyone, there's no good or whatever. But like, it's just something, it's hard for me to like slow down to more of like a, let's do a boxing class.
Yeah.
But what I really like about yin yoga is it's like, you're not doing it as a workout. Like you're doing it, it's, you know, more about stillness, and it feels meditative for me, which it's really hard for me to turn off my brain. And it's like just long stretching, and it feels really good. And I feel like it's really helped me feel more energy.
Wow,
So,
that's really encouraging to hear because yin yoga is no joke. It's not easy if you're doing it right. When you're holding these
not that it's
poses
easy. Yeah.
for 2 to 4 minutes, sometimes 5 minutes, depending on the teaching style, you know, it's kind of active stretching, and stretching doesn't always feel good when you're pushing to that edge.
And I'd say I don't feel the pressure on myself of pushing to the edge. Like, you know, there's times when I just go in and, you know, I'm modifying things, and I'm doing it just to like make sure that I'm like moving my body and being still, not still, but like, you know, relaxing for an hour in some way. So giving myself that permission to like not have to be training for a marathon, and I almost
Yeah.
did. I actually last year I was going to do the LA half marathon because we're a charity partner of it. And I was like, I'm going to do this, like my first race since having cancer. And I like went on a little like run, like barely a run. And I was like, I hate this. Why would I do this?
You hate it right then, or
I've always hated running.
oh my, I don't know if I knew
But
that about you.
oh, really? Yeah, because I was a goalie in field hockey. I mean, you know, I was athletic and in shape, but like I don't enjoy running. Like Eric, you know, my husband, for those who
He
don't know,
loves running.
loves running. And that's awesome. Like I love that for him. But for me, like I always did it. Yeah, I would run with Team in Training for Leukemia and Lymphoma Society well before I had cancer. But my mother-in-law is a stage 4 lymphoma survivor. Like I don't enjoy running, but I love goal setting. And like I really enjoyed the camaraderie and the team aspect of it. So I enjoyed training for a marathon, but I don't enjoy just going for a run. And so I'm like, you know, why do something that I actually don't enjoy? Like,
That's valid.
no, right? Like, no one's like, oh man, you didn't train for the LA half marathon while in chemo? You know, like, come on. Most people would have been like, please don't do that.
I could totally see you doing that though, because I know what a go-getter you are. I know that you like goals. I know that you love challenges and you like to check those boxes.
Yeah, so I think I've gotten better at, it's still a work in progress, but being really selective in where I allocate my time and energy, because you know, I want to do all the things, but if I'm training for something, that's taking away time from what I could spend on other stuff for We Got This, you know, maybe my energy and other things for Ellie.
Yes.
Like there's different, you know, there's only so much we can fit in. So things need to be removed for other stuff to fill it. And prioritizing that is something I've gotten a lot better at, and I still have some work to do.
I mean, those are wise words. That sounds like real growth to me. Somebody who understands. I think it's okay to want to do it all. In fact, I like being around those types of people because they just have this childlike, exciting, lovable energy, because you want to be around those people. They're up for anything. They love a challenge. But when you combine that with, you know, being realistic and learning how to prioritize, that's a real sign of maturity and finding true balance in your life. So it sounds like to me you're on your way, and it's truly wise when you say like, I'm going to be continuing to work on this, because I don't think we just master it. That's not the way this works. every day is different. We don't know what we're going to be presented with tomorrow or 10 years from now or whatever.
Exactly,
And so you're going to be growing. We're going to be growing for the rest of our lives. We're going to be adapting. And I think having that kind of flexible mindset is the key. So with that said, I'm wondering, where does your mental health come into play? Are you currently seeing a therapist? Do you have mental support? What does that look like?
Yeah. One, I think it's so important. And it's something I've always found important. And I didn't know until I really, truly got very depressed that I really hadn't been like clinically depressed before. Whatever, if ever in my life I felt like I was never like this. And it was when, after my original chemo, I went into maintenance on Herceptin and Perjeta, which are amazing drugs that like have very little side effects, and they're just very targeted for HER2 positive breast cancer. And I know people have been on them 10 years. Like, it's crazy.
Wow.
But for me, after 4 months, they stopped working. And that's like a big example of when people say curing cancer, I don't see how there's one cure for cancer, because there's so many different types of cancer. The way I react to a treatment is totally different from how someone else might react. But it was after the 4 months, I had a recurrence in my left breast and my brain. And I had 2 tumors in my brain. And then I switched into a clinical trial that combined a type of chemo called Enhertu with oral, I don't even know the long word for it. It's like antigen inhibitor.
Yes, I literally just heard an advertisement for it on Spotify yesterday, and I was like, I need to memorize this for the podcast, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
Oh yeah, this one's called tucatinib, which is funny. It sounds like catnip. But and I'm actually still on that drug. But the Enhertu made me incredibly sick, and it wasn't the brain tumors that made me depressed, things like that. I genuinely, and I am now, like, I feel empowered. Like, I feel like, well, I hate that I have cancer. Like, there's so many silver linings from it. Like, I'm genuinely positive. But the Enhertu crushed me. Like, I couldn't get out of bed without throwing up. And with metastatic, like I said, I mean, you're on treatment indefinitely. So you're on it for as long as it'll work. And when you run out of treatments, you have nothing left to try. And that's why I live with terminal cancer. Like, it's still terminal, But that was when, like, not being able to live life, I realized that I wasn't afraid of dying. I was afraid of not being able to live. And I genuinely got to the point where in my mind, I'm like, I don't want to, like, I didn't want to hurt myself, but I was also like, okay, if cancer killed me, I was like, I can't live like this.
Because it sucked so hard?
It sucked so hard. Like, I would take meds just to keep me asleep. Like, I couldn't even watch TV. Like, I was so nauseous. I had so much back pain as a side effect. Like, I couldn't sit just at like a dinner with Eric. Like, we tried going one time to our favorite place, Inn of the Seventh Ray in Topanga. And we were sitting there, and before the food even came, I was like, I have to leave. I felt so incredibly uncomfortable even on the car ride back, like laying back. Like, I was uncomfortable all the time. And part of the way, as I was like going into this depression, I don't think there's anything wrong with taking antidepressants. Like, it's nothing that I think is taboo or I shouldn't do. But I just like kept being like, no, it's okay. Like, I'm going to keep trying to do like natural things, like things that I know make me happy or other stuff. And like, it got to the point where once I realized I didn't want to live anymore, I'm like, I need to figure this out. But actually, and I forgot this till I'm even saying this right now, I saw 2 psychiatrists leading up to this point, and both of them were like, well, you're running a nonprofit and all this stuff. Like, you seem good. If you like want meds, we can do it, but I feel like you're okay. And made me feel kind of weird about being on meds, because I'm like, well, I'm not like asking for it. I'm like asking for help, like what you think is best.
Yes.
So one, I think that was super dangerous that they didn't recognize, and I wasn't putting on an act. Like, I was down. And my psychiatrist now is amazing, Dr. Guranathian. She's specific to oncology. So she specifically helps, people with cancer. And I went on an antidepressant called Effexor. And, you have to be careful too of like which drugs you can have based on the meds. And I have to always look at that as I change treatments. But it did help a lot. And I think it helped bring enough clarity to me to know that I needed to just speak up, and like I needed to not feel guilty or worried about staying alive and, you know, surviving for everyone else. I needed to speak up and be like, I can't do this. And when I did speak up to my oncologist, she's like, well, then it's not working. And I was like, but it is, like it had gone rid of my brain tumors. It worked so well. It was like crazy. Like it still
Wow.
saved my life, you know, like I still have had a full response in my brain, but she was like, that's half, you know, the other half is you having quality of life and living. So she's like, if you don't want to live, like we're failing here, let's switch. And
Yes.
that's when I switched on to the medicines. You know, chemo I was on for over 2 years and lived like an amazingly you know, and a lot of people are like, how are you doing so much stuff? You should slow down and all this. And it's like, when I'm able, I fit in as much as I can. And I'm trying to accept that when I'm not able, like you were saying, like giving myself the time to rest, knowing that the days that I'm going to, within what's realistic, you know, do all the things.
I love that. I feel like you're taking advantage of every minute of your life.
I'm trying, and I did it a little too hard at first. So
Yeah.
after I was like so sick on and her too, I was on that for about 6 months. I switched and I started feeling like me again. It was like amazing. So any sports game I got invited to, or concert, or like, you know, I'd go out to dinner, but you know, maybe I'd end up drinking too much. You know, like I felt like me again. And it was so exciting.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was actually in Costa Rica with a nonprofit called Project Koru, and they do cancer survivor trips. And you're with 10 fellow Thriver survivors, and then all the volunteer staff are also survivors. It was really special. And every morning we would start the day with yoga. And then we would journal and then kind of like share some stuff. And I talked about this, and I was like, I feel like I it was the first time in my life that I was living like I was dying. Like I was like, let's do it all. And I realized that I needed to start living like I'm alive and valuing, you know, my time realistically, and but still, you know, living fully. And it resonated a lot with you know, my friends there, and a couple of them got it tattooed on themselves before leaving Costa Rica. They got living like I'm alive, which is really
Oh,
cool.
wow. That's so empowering.
Yeah, it was really, it was just so like genuinely how I felt. And I came to this realization really in that journaling session. Like I knew that, but then like kind of mapping it out, being like, yeah, like just like how it doesn't need to be like all or nothing or this or that. And I'm totally that way. So like, you know, calling the kettle black. But, you know, you don't have to survive and like be tough and all this stuff by other people's definition. Like
Right.
do it by yours. And that's where living like I was dying was like, you know, well, I don't know how long I have. I'm going to always do it. Not that I think I'm dying right away or anything. But once I came to that realization that like, I have time and I can do it all. And I, you know, when there is a game or a concert I want to go to, like I'm going to go, and I prioritize that now. Like if I see a show I really want to go to, I'm not like, you've never regretted buying tickets for a concert, you know, or those kinds of things. But I'm also, you know, reeling it in on some of it.
Yeah, it sounds like you are finding a balance. And it seems very, very natural that after being sick and feeling down and not feeling like yourself for the 6 months and then getting on a new drug, and then all of a sudden you're feeling your old self again, feeling good, feeling excited about life, it would make
Yeah.
sense that you might go a little bit, you know, harder than you know you should, but then you're reeling it back. Where you are right now, it sounds like you're finding that beautiful balance between the two, and you're being more selective. I think that's words
Exactly.
of wisdom for anybody out there. I think we need to be more selective in general instead of just saying yes to everything. And if we say yes to everything, that's also okay. But let's check in with ourselves and be realistic about like, okay, is this too much? Is this not enough? Am I not being social enough? I don't think you personally have that problem. I think when it comes to being social, you definitely get your fill.
Yeah, but like during that time that I was depressed, I didn't want to see people. Like I didn't want to be around people not as me. And it's not because like I need some perception of me being positive or tough or anything like that. It's just like if I don't feel like myself, I'm not enjoying myself. And
Yeah.
so, there's certain things like actually the logo behind us, like our traditional, we got this logo is more like the one on my water bottle. It is the one on my water bottle.
Yes.
But this pink and yellow one was from our 90s launch party. And it,
Yes, I
obviously,
remember.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, 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 of course. And, of course, it's a take on MTV. And like that 90s launch party, like breathed life into me. Like anything 90s or like reminders of high school and college, like it's just like Ellie dancing to Backstreet Boys in sync every night is like my joy, and I feel so alive from that because it's not me. And I don't think it's a negative thing, like identifying with my cancer. A lot of people are like, I don't want my cancer to define me and all of that, and I don't want it to like define me in a negative way, but I think I have it define me in a positive way, in the sense that like, I mean, my life's mission is all around it, and I talk about it all the time in a way that makes me feel like I'm making a difference. But yeah, like just being reminiscent on fun times. Like with a friend have season tickets to the LA Kings. And I played field hockey in college. That was my main sport. I played ice hockey too, and there's no field hockey games to go watch. So I go to a lot of Kings games, and like I love having it because it'll be a random Wednesday night I have tickets and I don't want to waste them, and so it forces me to like do something even if I'm feeling a little off, or like, and it reminds me of good times and things. And it's finding like what brings out that joy that I think is so important. And no one can tell you that, just like no one can tell you what foods make you feel best or what workouts you're going to enjoy most.
Absolutely. It sounds like you know what brings you joy and you invite more of that into your life, like the 90s, like Backstreet Boys. Did you literally say Backstreet Boys? Because I was training Mallory right before this, and we were listening to Backstreet Boys while we were working out. I'm not kidding.
Oh my God, I love that. And it's funny because there was like a post, I think, yesterday from the Backstreet Boys about some big announcement. And I see a notification
Yeah,
from a
there is.
friend. Yeah, I see it right now. They're going to
They're
go to the
coming.
Sphere. I mean,
Yeah, to the Sphere in
take my
Vegas.
money. Take my money.
There
Yeah.
you go. There you go. I mean, I don't know. I feel like where you're at in your life, it just sounds like you're finding more balance. You're giving yourself more grace. You're helping people give themselves more grace, because I would imagine that there's so many emotions wrapped up in all of this. And I just wonder, what I'm wondering is, when you do feel depressed, when you do feel down, do you have any strategies or any words of wisdom around like what you would encourage people to consider when they're going through that? Do you tell them to like put a time limit on it? Do you tell them to try and transform it into a positive thought? Do you say, go ahead and feel it? What do you do?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think of it a lot like how I think of parenting is like there's certain things like Eric will get really stressed if like Ellie, liked something and now she won't eat it, and different thing. And I totally get it. It's like totally normal. But I don't know, I look at everything like it's a phase, and not that, depression's like, oh, you'll get over it or whatever, but in the sense that a lot of things are temporary. And what made me so depressed on that chemo was knowing that I didn't know when it would end because I didn't know when I'd have, but the hope is that it won't end. Like the hope is that you'll get to keep being on it. So that feeling of it being indefinite and never ending was so daunting that it just crushed me. And I try to remember now that I'm feeling some of those things, like some of those symptoms are similar on my current chemo. But I've heard good things from other people, the majority of people, and I feel confident that like I am going to adjust. I have more tools in my tool belt now. Like I know the things that helped me and what didn't. I'm on the antidepressants. Like I'm being proactive on what's helpful. So I think it's like doing the proactive things when you feel up to it and letting yourself feel it when you're not. and not considering that lazy or giving up or things like that. It's like you're human. Like we're all
Yeah.
humans. Some of us just happen to have cancer. And to me, that's a word that can be replaced by anything else,
Absolutely.
autoimmune diseases, infertility, diabetes. I mean, there's so many things that people go through, and we identify most with cancer because most people are affected by it in some way. So it's most like recognizable. But I think that goes for anyone. Like, I wish that I had that mindset when I owned the gym, when things would be really tough. I wish I found other ways to positively cope with it that would have made it less tough, maybe.
Yeah, but I think owning a gym in general is pretty daunting, and I feel like you had that experience because you were supposed to have it that way, and you've learned, you know,
Well, and
since then.
at the end, yeah, totally. Like I don't regret it at all. I learned so much. I consider it, my real life MBA. But at the end of it, when Eric and I were trying to have Ellie, and I realized like I can't do this anymore, and I don't want to do this while having a baby and everything, then I worked hard to sell it. And that worked out really great. And it doesn't always work out that way. I was very lucky with that. But I think just like with my chemo, speaking up and making a change, like there's some things that we do need to potentially suck it up and do, that's the best option. And then there's some things that we don't. And I think taking the time to identify which it is important. Like my oncologist said, she's like, if you're ever on something that is kind of like the last thing, or like, I really do need you to push through it, she's like, I'll tell you, But if things happen where like this past recurrence, and then the recurrence was isolated to my left breast, so normally you'd have to switch treatment, but where it was isolated, we tried to just remove it with a lumpectomy and continue treatment. The problem was that after I paused, you have to pause chemo to have surgery so you can heal. And when we paused it and I went back on it, I became allergic to my chemo meds, which was just like so frustrating. It's more common than you would think now that I've learned about it. Like I probably had a small underlying allergy the whole time, but it's hard to differentiate with symptoms and stuff.
Yeah.
And so then when I became allergic, the allergist helped, and we did like a desensitizing of like ramping up over the course of a few weeks. But even once I did that, while I wasn't like breaking out into hives and having the full allergic reaction, I kind of was like, in that I was kind of chronically fatigued and other stuff. And so that's when I said to her, like, I'll push through this if like I need to, but overall, I feel like we're fitting a circle into a square box. It just like, I'm like trying to hang on to this treatment that I'm allergic to as long as possible. And she was like, we can switch. Like, this is a scenario where it makes sense to switch. And then if I run through all other lines of treatment that exist, at some point, she's like, we actually can go back to this and desensitize again and try it. So it's like knowing your options. You don't know unless you ask. And if you don't ask, the answer is no.
It sounds like you have an incredible oncologist, by the way. I mean, I don't think that everybody has one as good as yours.
It took me time to get there. My initial oncologist, frankly, sucked. I think she sucks. She basically told me I was dying, and that she's like, well, some patients have lived like 6-7 years. And I'm like, I'm 34 at the time. And she's telling me that I'm going to live to maybe 40 as a success, with a 1-year-old. Like, that's messed up. And I ended up getting a second opinion. Even the initial chemo she put me on was more toxic than necessary for stage 4. It wasn't the most up to date. It wasn't anything that was like malpractice. It just wasn't the best option.
Yeah.
And finding the right doctors is like the most important thing I think you can ever do for anything. But I recognize that it's not the easiest thing. It's a lot of work, and it's repeating your story, and it's, dealing with insurance at every turn and all that stuff. But I really think it's like the most critical life-saving thing is having a team that supports you and that you trust. Because like my oncologist, who was a part of the live stream we did, and I've been posting some clips from that, like she's the first to say that like she doesn't know all the answers. Like we just don't. And so, the best we can do is work together, her provide with all the knowledge and her opinion, and us decide which way we're going to go with it. And when you recognize that, I think it makes all the difference, because otherwise it's like you're constantly questioning or blaming or just maybe taking the wrong direction. So none of us really know.
Yeah.
But
And also,
yeah.
when you do that, when you're blaming and going in the other direction, it seems like you're, that comes from a place of not being empowered. The whole time you're sharing this with me, it sounds like you did the work, you did the research, you went through different doctors to find the one that was perfect for you. And it sounds like what people do, like, for example, with me finding my current therapist, I don't think that all therapists are created equal. And so just because they hold that title, and it doesn't matter what their credentials are, you have to see, number one, do you vibe with them? Do they speak the same language as you? Do they think do you feel like they have your best interest at heart? And do they have the knowledge, or have they have the same mindset? So I feel like you did the work in order to find your oncologist. I did my work in finding my therapist. Do you also have a talk therapist that you see?
So when I was first diagnosed, I was with Kaiser, and it was like limited to, within Kaiser. And it was also during the pandemic, and it was like really hard to get appointments. And the first appointment I was able to get was like a month out. I mean, I was just diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and I couldn't get an appointment with a therapist. And when I finally had the appointment, she didn't even know I had cancer. So like it was, I stopped I've had therapists before. So like, I know what's going to work and what's not. And I was like, I'm so sorry, but like, this isn't going to work. And like, you start like, no bullshit, right? Like your time becomes a different value. And so after that, I never found the right therapist. What I did find was there's a nonprofit called Fran's Place, and Fran, who runs it, is a breast cancer thriver, and she was great and really helpful. We talked a couple of times, but it wasn't like a long-term solution. And I was pretty good at that time, but I've been in and out, to be honest, with therapists. I find very hard to find, like the ones that I love don't take insurance, or other things, and then your insurance changes. And so I do think that that's still a bit of a struggle that I honestly should prioritize, because I should have a regular therapist. Because for now, it's like my Sarah and Amber who work with me have to fill in the gaps.
I was just thinking about that. And like, all kidding aside, it's so lovely to have supportive friends and family members whom you can speak with. And even if it's your coworkers, but I'm assuming they're your friends as well, it's different when you speak with a professional, an unbiased professional. And
Totally.
I can know that you see the value in that. So I hope you continue with that journey, because I can share with you that my therapist in particular has been pivotal in my growth and development. I'm wondering if there's any other area in your health and your fitness and your wellness that you feel you're currently working on, or you feel like you need some guidance with?
I think definitely on the nutrition side, now that my tastes are changing, I am trying to figure out, like, I have like the things that are regular that I can like consistently rely on feeling okay with. But again, just like the overnight oats, I don't want to make it that I don't like it anymore. So I think continuing to get more creative, taking the time maybe to cook more again would be really helpful. So I think that's like an area that I should really focus on. And then I think with the fitness, especially as I'm starting this new treatment, I really need to just be okay with like walking being my exercise, and like do that, rather than being like, well, if I can't go take an hour-long boxing class, then I can't do anything,
Right. It all or
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah, exactly. I really think for me right now, what I feel like would be best for my fitness is like getting in my 10,000 steps a day and doing more strength training, as like not hit, not, pushing it and all that stuff. Like simply focusing on muscle groups and things that make me feel good to just stay. Because like as I have the back pain, it's hard to then, and if I'm in bed for a few days at a time, then like, you're like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Like I have back pain, but my core is probably weaker. And now, like, so I've been prioritizing massages too, like especially after treatment. Massages have a lot of studies around it that like it can really help with the benefits of chemo, but also like just my back feels like it's going to fall off sometimes. And it really does help to just have someone work on it and then continue with the yin yoga and stretching and things like that.
I love all of that. It sounds like the walking to me, I think, is a really beautiful compromise, because you're not only getting like the vitamin D from the sun, but you're getting some, some fresh air. You're moving your body. You're not pushing it too hard. You combine that with strength training, and the way you were describing it kind of sounds like bodybuilding, which I love. I love, because you can do that nice and slow, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
and you can still build that muscle. It's really important for us women to especially continue to lift heavy as we get older, because it's going to be harder and harder to put on muscle. We need to keep those bones nice and strong, and it'll be easier for us to gain fat. So we need to make sure we're continuing to strength train. And it doesn't have to be HIIT style. If your body can't handle that right now for whatever reason, it doesn't have to be. Just moving in general, combining that with the yin yoga for sure, I think is good. And I like that you mentioned massage. I wasn't even going to ask you about that, because that's such a good one. I mean, it just automatically kind of drains your lymphatic system a little bit. Healing touch is also incredibly powerful. But then like having somebody manipulate those muscles to like physically loosen them up because they want to constrict, they want to tighten, is such a lovely thing. There was another thing that just came to my mind with the nutrition. I like the idea of, the more you share this out loud, I think the more the possibility of it coming to fruition is going to be stronger. So I'm envisioning
Every time
you.
I talk to you, I feel like, I'm just like, I'll call you and be like, okay, Kat, I need to get my shit together.
Yes,
And
you have your
I
shit
feel so
together, by the
motivated.
way.
No, totally. But yeah, again, it's not even that. I'm just joking with that. But it's being okay with pivoting, right? Like,
Yes.
just like I was joking about, the idea of training for the half marathon and like, why would I want to do that? It's like being okay with like, I'm not who I was, 6 years ago, and cancer or not, that might not
Exactly.
be the thing that I would enjoy most also. And I think prioritizing that's so important.
I love all of that. Honestly, I say this from my heart. This is the most balanced I have ever seen you.
I appreciate that so much. And you really, know me better than most. So thank you. That means a lot.
I really appreciate everything that you've shared. I feel like you are one of the most inspiring women in my life, not only women, but just people in my life, because of the kind of goals you set. You reach for the stars, you always attain them, whether you have to pivot or not, or, change the plan a little bit, it always gets accomplished. And you want to take everybody in your orbit with you. You're not doing this alone. You're the kind of person who takes everybody with you. And I'm wondering, are there any last words of wisdom? Is there any messages you want to get out to people who are going to be listening to this podcast, whether it's about cancer or anything in general?
Yeah. Well, thank you for all of that. I always, anytime we're together, it's like, I feel like we just, enrich each other, of like, we build off of what we're doing and saying. And I feel like we genuinely, like, I feel so in the moment when I'm with you, which is, other than when people are coming in and interrupting our conversations. But
well, then we just pivot, right? It's all good.
Exactly. But, the biggest thing I think, cancer or not, like, cancer is not a prerequisite to living life. And I think that we don't place enough value on that. In the cancer scenario, we use so much the term of surviving and beating it and being tough. And I prefer the term thriving, because that's used a lot more in the metastatic community, since we technically haven't survived. We're still living with terminal cancer. But even in general, I prefer that. Like, if I'm having a bad day, someone be like, I'm surviving. It's like a bare minimum. And I don't think that you need to lower the bar because of X, Y, or Z. Like, if you need to lower the bar because you need a break or you need to take a day off, then do that. But like, you be the judge on that. Don't let other people's influence, target that. And there's a reason why it's we got this, not I got this or you got this. I really feel like life, cancer, like it's a team sport, like, like all the other things. And I think I've taken a lot of through the team sports and the gym camaraderie and all those kinds of things into my regular life throughout, my whole life and throughout my career. And I think it's just so important to view collaboration as we're stronger together. Like we're always a big thing, especially even our nonprofit, is we partner with other nonprofits. Like we're not competing with them. We all have the same goals of like helping people. And, hopefully if they don't have that goal, then they're probably not a good partner for us. But that's the biggest thing, is just, you don't have to prove anything to anyone. And you can decide what you want to prove or not to yourself. And that doesn't have to be the same thing throughout all of life circumstances. And it most definitely will not be the same. And I think meeting yourself where you're at is the best thing that you can do.
I absolutely love it. I'm going to end it there. Elissa, thank you so much for sharing all of your wisdom with us today.
Of course. It was so great getting to see you virtually, and I want to hug you in person soon.
And you will.
Okay.